Have you ever looked around and just felt like there's some kind of hidden pattern running the world? A secret rule that explains why some things are just wildly successful, while most things aren't? Well, guess what? There is. It's often called the 80-20 rule. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden law of inequality. So, the real mystery is this. Why does it seem like a tiny fraction of things gets the lion's share of the results? I mean, why isn't life a little more even? Let's start with a classic example, wealth. It's something we all kind of know, right? A pretty small percentage of the population controls a huge chunk of the world's money. It is definitely not a 50-50 split. No, it's radically skewed. Or, hey, think about where we all live. You've got these few massive mega cities, Tokyo, New York, that just keep swelling with millions of people. Meanwhile, countless small towns barely grow at all. See, it's that same dramatic imbalance. And these aren't just quirks, they're clues. So what's going on here? Is this all just one big coincidence? Or could there be some kind of predictable pattern behind it all? Well, it turns out, over a century ago, an economist stumbled upon the hidden law that connects all of this. Okay, so let's jump back in time to the 1890s. We've got this Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto, and he's just poring over all this, really dry income data. He wasn't looking for some grand universal law, but that's exactly what he was about to find. He started noticing that the number of people earning above a certain high income, well, it wasn't random at all. It actually followed a very predictable mathematical formula. And that single observation, that became his legacy. He had just uncovered what people would later call the law of the vital few. This big idea that in so many systems, a small number of inputs or people are responsible for most of the important outcomes. So the formal name for this is the Pareto Distribution. But you probably know it as the 80-20 rule. Like how 80% of sales often come from just 20% of the clients? Or maybe 80% of your productivity comes from 20% of your time? This isn't just some catchy business phrase. It's a real, measurable, statistical pattern. Now, the key idea behind the math is something called Paretian tail behavior. So imagine a graph. Instead of a nice, neat bell curve where everything's clustered in the middle, you get this curve with a very, very long tail stretching out to one side. That tail, that's where the magic happens. It represents those few extremely high values, the billionaires, the megacities, that basically skew the entire average. Okay, but look, a compelling theory is one thing. Science demands proof, and Pareto's discovery kicked off a pretty fierce debate. It was time to really put this thing to the test. The big question on everyone's mind was, all right, is this just a neat little idea that happened to work for Italian income data back in the day, or is it something more fundamental? Does it actually hold up when you look at other countries, or even completely different things? In this slide, this is the proof. What you're looking at is income data, but this time from Botswana in 1974. Now, normally, if you plot this, you'd get a sharp curve, but scientists plotted it on this special log-log scale, which kind of stretches everything out. And when they did that, something incredible happened. The curve straightened into an almost perfect line. That straight line, that is the statistical smoking gun. It's the visual proof that the data is following Pareto's law. But, even with evidence this clear, not everyone was sold. Scientific progress is rarely a straight line itself, right? This discovery sparked a fiery debate among economists and statisticians that went on for nearly half a century. You had critics like G.F. Shiras, who are pretty harsh. He looked at income data from India and basically said, nope, my points don't lie even roughly on a straight line. He was convinced the so-called law was a total failure. And honestly, Shiras had a point. It wasn't always a perfect fit. But here's the thing about science. It's not always about perfection. It's about finding models that are useful, that are predictive, and over time, the scientific community came to a consensus. Even with some little wiggles here and there, the Pareto distribution was just a remarkably powerful way to describe the world. And this is where the story gets really wild. Because what happened next was incredible. Researchers started seeing this exact same pattern, not just in wealth, but, well, pretty much everywhere. A truly universal pattern started to emerge. I mean, they found the same mathematical distribution described the sizes of cities, the sizes of businesses, Even something as random as the size of insurance claims. It shows up in geology. It even shows up in the words we use. There's this related idea called Zipf's law, and it's the same pattern. A few words like the and a make up most of what we say, while most words, like, say, Paretian, are used very, very rarely. So here's the big takeaway. The crucial point is this. Our world is not nearly as governed by that nice, neat bell curve as we might think. So many of the most important things in business, in nature, in our lives, they aren't distributed evenly. They follow this predictable, unequal, but kind of beautifully mathematical pattern of imbalance. And that really just leads to one final thought. Now that you know about this hidden law, where do you see it? Think about it in your job, your hobbies, maybe even in your relationships. I promise, once you start looking for the 80-20 rule, you are going to start seeing it absolutely everywhere.